All right, in this video, we're going to be talking about permeability, or in other words, the ability for water to get into our soils. There's a lot of benefit from that. A lot of things happen once water gets into our soils. But we want to focus on, well, how does it get into our soils? So first, we want to look at soil texture, right? Soils are defined by their texture based on the size of the particles in there. We'll look at sandy soils. These are bigger particles. These are something that's more like, say, half a millimeter in size, a millimeter in size. Think about your beach, right? Sandy soils. Now, sandy soils, bigger particles. Clay soils is the opposite end. These are very small particles. You're talking 0.002 millimeters, right? So 2 microns, very, very small particle sizes. Now, normal soil is going to be a combination of both, right? But you're going to have predominantly one versus the other. So when someone says I have a sandy soil, it's because predominantly larger particles, or clay soil on the other end, on the other side. Now, when we think about just soil texture, that impacts how water can get into that soil and how water travels through that soil. So if we think about it from a sandy soil, water can actually get into, let's switch to blue here, water can actually get into the soil a lot easier, right? It can penetrate into the soil easier, and it can percolate down easier as well. So if your goal is to get water to percolate down to, say, the groundwater here to recharge your aquifer, sandy soils are great, right? This is what we want at the bottom of our recharge basins. We want very coarse materials to allow that water through. So sandy soils, water can get in quickly, but it also leaves quickly, right? So if you've got this in your front yard, sandy soil drains a bit too quickly. You're not going to have any of that water sticking around long enough for your plants to use, spring into, say, summertime. Now, clay soils are very, very small, right? Water enters in a lot slower into a clay soil, right? It's going to kind of pond the top and fan out and slowly enter. Once it enters into the soil, then it travels very slowly as well as it moves through clay soils. Now, the benefit of clay soils is once that water's in the soil, it can actually stick around for quite a while. And so your soil can stay moist for a longer period of time than, say, like a sandy soil. Right? Now, ideally, if you got some kind of loam in the middle, which has kind of got the best of both worlds. But I would say even more importantly than the texture of your soil is the health of your soil. So when we talk about healthy soil, it's got to have life in it. It's got to have plant material. It's got to have living microorganisms. Those microorganisms work together with the plants to create a sponge. So regardless of whether we have sandy soil or clay soil, once we've introduced organic matter, once we've introduced plant material, that plant material, those roots can then interact with the soil microorganisms, creating this giant superorganism below our feet. That allows for either of these textures to better allow water into the soil and also to better hold on to that water or let it pass through, right, and recharge the groundwater. So our plants are happy in our landscapes. Our groundwater is recharging if we get enough rainwater capture, if we get enough rain that season, as long as we've got healthy soils. But we need that combination of living plant material, that coordinating event, if you will, with the microorganisms to have happy, healthy soils, right? Now, this is very important if your goal here is holding onto rainwater in your landscape or parkway strips or open fields or groundwater recharge. And then remember too that the microorganisms in the soil, along with the properties of the soil itself, also acts as a filter so that this water, as it travels through, it's filtered, it's cleaned, then it makes its way to whatever that endpoint is, whether it travels all the way down and recharges the groundwater or it, say, evaporates up and out. So this is just a little bit on the differences in texture when it comes to water percolation, water infiltration, more importantly focused on healthy living soils doing the job.